Depot devoid.
Depot devoid!
Depot devoid. Depot devoid.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Depot Devoid for an episode that I like to call Zeists a Beach, baby. I'm Matt Fagan, and with me here, as always, is my brother. Who
Ted
are you?
Fagan.
Hi, Ted.
I'm really mad about this one.
You're mad about Highlander II, The Quickening? Yes, folks, it's Highlander II time. It is perhaps the most famously what the fuck sequel of all time. And for me, I want to say, like, right off the bat that, you know, I was like 12 when I saw Highlander, right when it, like, shortly after it came out, and I was, I think, 17 when Highlander 2 came out in the theaters. So I was exactly the target market. I was a teenage boy who loved sci-fi nerd bullshit. I was a huge fan of Highlander. And this was probably the first time that I had ever been so deeply disappointed by a movie that I was looking forward to. Like the anticipation, obviously, like, great anticipation is never going to pay off the way that you want it to, but, and obviously as a horror genre fan, I'm no stranger to sequels that don't really live up to what came before. But Highlander 2 is something so special. It was an indescribable theatrical experience.
I'm
Oh, my
especially
Lord.
disappointed with the knowledge that there is, in fact, a different version of this out there that I haven't seen.
Now, so which one did you watch here? Did you watch the theatrical cut?
Yes.
Okay, so we should probably make that clear for our listeners up right off the bat. If we just skipped Highlander, I went right to Highlander 2 because we assume that as smart, kind, good-hearted people, you have already seen and appreciated Highlander, and there is nothing that we can add to that discussion.
Quick segue. We are going to have to watch all of them as a series at some point. Just
well,
not
of course.
today.
Definitely not today. So Highlander 2 came out in 1991. There are actually 4 versions of Highlander 2, but only 2 that are really, the other 2 are European, not as dramatically different from each other as the 2 that we're going to be discussing a little bit today. When Highlander 2 came out theatrically, probably the biggest gut punch as a viewer comes really close to the beginning when we discover that the immortals who we loved in Highlander are aliens from the planet Zeist. That sets the stage for a movie that was destined to satisfy 0 fans of Highlander. When the movie, jumping ahead a little bit, when the movie came out on home video, there were a number of changes that were made to the home video release. The biggest of which is that all references to the alien origin of the Immortals has been excised from the movie. We can get into this a little bit more later, but yeah, there are two really distinct different versions. For many, many years, the theatrical cut, the part of the cut with Zeist in it, was completely unavailable. Like, it had not been released in the United States on VHS or on Laserdisc. You could maybe like import it if you could also get an imported video player. The version that aired on TV, like, none of that was the Zeist version. So when I watched it this week, it is literally the first time that I've seen this version of Highlander 2 in over 30 years. It was an interesting experience.
You may be surprised to know, Matt, I did a great deal of research on this. And after my first viewing of this film, which happened as the release in 91, I was 9 years old, or 8, depending on when I actually watched it in the theaters or when that happened.
Right.
Again, my great deal of research that I did here. This movie was terrible. And that's really all the research I needed to do. It was absolutely fucking bug nuts awful. And there is no...
It absolutely is.
Yeah, there's no explanation for where any of this came from. And what I came to realize with all of the deep available knowledge out there, which there is not a great deal of, this was clearly, obviously, 2 to 3 different movies smashed up into one person's vomit.
What I tried to do when I watched it this time was imagine that this was not Highlander 2 and was just an unrelated movie, and to try to think what would it be like to just come to it as that. And honestly, it doesn't help at all is the answer. I am at such a loss to understand this movie. And when you hear the director, Russell Mulcahy is the man responsible for this movie. He also is responsible for Highlander. And when I look at these two, I just got to think, is everything that makes Highlander great just an accident? Because it seems that, at least now, there were production issues with the movie, which explains a few things. But the movie that they went into production to make does not stand up as a sequel to Highlander. Like, there's no part of this equation that I can understand as a Highlander fan. And I have to wonder if there's a missing piece to the formula between Highlander and Highlander 2. And Russell Mulcahy is not the writer that we thought he was, because it seems like this is largely the movie that they intended to make on purpose. The alien business, that wasn't stuck in there by producers. This was his fucking idea. They wanted to say that the Immortals were from the planet Zeist in a galaxy far, far away. And that is 100% contradicted by the first movie that he made.
All right, Matt. Now, my deep research lie, which is clearly a lie to begin with, shuffling off that to the side now, you told me that he did that on purpose, and being your little brother, and all of our stuff about being children, being like, you did that on purpose. I'm going to say that's unacceptable. And I will not forgive him if he apologizes. That was not okay what he did right there. That's unforgivable. If he did that on purpose.
This was their first idea. This is what they set out to do.
Unacceptable.
And what's weird is, like, they were even too cowardly to stand by it when they did the edit, because the stuff that, okay, just to frame it a little bit, this movie goes into production. It's kind of expensive. They're filming in Argentina, which is at the time like going through like massive economic upheaval. Inflation is going through the roof while they're in production. Like, costs are spiraling. I don't know why they decided to film it there. It's clearly an insane decision. But basically, the movie is sort of owned by this group of producers who, at a certain point, like 3 weeks before the shoot is finished, they come in and they're like, it's done enough. And they sort of cut them off, and then they sort of it's been called the insurance cut.
Right.
That the movie has to come out. Like, everyone is already beholden to this. The movie will be released. And so they're going to make a movie out of what they already have. So I understand in that respect, there are going to be problems. However, it is not as if it's a completely different movie from what they intend. Like, it's fucked up. There are things missing, and it doesn't go together very well. But they were not filming a potentially good sequel to Highlander that then got screwed because they didn't get to finish making it. They were filming a deeply, deeply bad sequel to Highlander that only became worse because the producers stepped in and cut them off.
Fair
There
enough.
was nothing good going to come out of this anyway.
No. So, I mean, let's get right to the very beginning. I mean, there's the opening sequence, a bunch of bullshit about the ozone that really didn't actually matter particularly throughout the entirety of the movie. I mean, it comes up 3-5 times maybe, but it's not really what it's about. And then
it's about this. It's a prelude to the Shield, which is what the movie is about.
Yeah, but the Shield actually isn't even what the movie's about anyway. That none of it all came together as a cohesive unit. And why would Connor be involved in any of this at all? He's not a brilliant
because
scientist,
he's a scientist, apparently.
but he never was. None of that ever came up. So this is 25 years later. But none of it actually.
It's 25 years after 1999, which was already the future.
Oh, right.
So the prologue takes place in
bad.
1999, which is 8 years in the future from when the movie came out. And in this prologue, the depleted ozone layer is a problem that is being addressed by the now science-y Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod. And they create this shield, which is supposed to protect the world.
Yeah, and we've got Max and we've got Ramirez all up in the galaxy. And now here's the other thing that I took a note of. Michael Ironside was credited before Sean It's Okay to Hit a Woman Connery in the opening credits. That was maddening.
Interesting.
I mean, I was shocked. Absolutely not that it was bad.
I mean, in terms of the size
shocked.
of their parts, that makes sense, but it is weird. I'm surprised that Sean Connery didn't sue somebody.
Yeah, well, and you probably did. Or maybe in one of those other 3 variations of the movie. Who knows?
Well, I mean, especially since he wasn't the first one. But yeah, so the Shield Corporation is basically the biggest company in the world. And the Shield means that there's no weather or sun. It's always like 97 degrees, and it's created this massive dystopian future in which I guess they still have opera.
And you can zoom right in on that mouth.
Oh yeah, that was really ugly too. That was like Julianne Moore in Cast a Deadly Spell. So we have our hero. We have our hero Connor McLeod as an old man now because he became mortal at the end of Highlander.
And he talks like this sometimes, but then he
has to tell you that he's old. Like that.
He forgets he's old.
He doesn't talk much at all because he just goes to the opera and falls asleep. And he sleeps at this. Oh my, this is so infuriating. This is where things start to go extra bad. He is sleeping in his box at the opera, and then he is awakened by the memory of Sean Connery's voice,
Say my name.
inexplicably reminding him that he's from another galaxy.
Remember, Highlander. Remember your home. Another galaxy. You were chosen. Remember?
Yes. Yes, I remember. The beginning. 500 years ago. On the planet Zeists.
This is the most blatant, like, audience info dump, the laziest fucking piece of writing. It is right, like, we're like 3 minutes into the movie and it is already just like spitting in your face with the way it is telling this story. And so we find out via this clumsy ass memory that there was a rebellion on the planet Zeist in another galaxy 500 years ago. The bad guy, Michael Ironside, is inexplicably named after a Japanese sword. And we discovered that the Quickening, which in the first movie we thought was an experience of absorbing the power and knowledge of a slain immortal, it's actually a bowl of melted magic orange sherbet.
I think you misunderstood that. It's two dudes who are not French and not Scottish fingering each other, saying, "We're shamans. It's the Quickening." Just
It's
remember,
definitely orange sherbet.
say shaman. Shaman. And you can get it. You can definitely. I haven't changed my mind at all about that at all, Barbara.
You did an interview in which you said, not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist, it's better to do it with an open hand. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good. I
think it's bad?
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it.
He's striking her in heaven now. Did you understand what the rebellion was about?
100%. I found the cure to the disease of the 20th century and now I've lost it.
Did you understand
Wrong
how
movie.
Exile to Earth is supposed to work?
Yeah, there's some guys that look weird and don't speak, but their words come out in audio form without their mouth moving, and then they point swords. Yeah, Matt, I mean, did you not get that?
Yeah, so the Zeistians have some way of reaching Earth, which is not really explained. Not really sure if if it only connects to Earth, or if they choose to connect to Earth, but they could connect to other places. Maybe Zeist and Earth are the only inhabited planets in the universe.
You're working way
really
too
know.
hard.
Well, somebody has to. They didn't.
No, they did not.
And also they retcon the prize a little bit. The prize, it's not like the Quickening. It's not a bowl of a different flavor of delicious dessert. The prize is either the thing that we saw before in Highlander, or the ability to return to Zeist.
Yeah.
I would also like a little bit of closure on why they are immortal. Like he tells them,
"You will be sent to the planet Earth. Once there, you will be immortal. You can only die if your head is cut from your body. When one of you becomes the last of us on Earth, he will claim the prize."
They don't explain how any of this works. I don't know if it's a natural phenomenon, or if it's if it's a Zeistian technology. This thing is so fucking stupid.
When Michael Ironside finally decides to go to Earth, he says, "Doesn't look like Kansas." It's like, what? Why would Michael Ironside say it doesn't look like Kansas? He's never been
There's
there,
a
doesn't
lo-
know any of that.
Why do they call Connor McLeod Highlander when he's from fucking Zeist?
Why do
They're
they
all from
call
the
him
same place.
McLeod? He's not a McLeod. And a katana isn't a man from Zeist. And we got Ramirez, who was 2,400 years old before. Shit. I mean, this is you can't write this into functional reality.
No, and that's, but it seems like they thought they had something when they started. I mean, people signed on for this. Like they looked at this script and they said, "Sign me up to be in this movie." And one of those people was Sean Connery, who at that point, like, was maybe not at the peak of his career, but he certainly could have done better than Highlander 2, I would think. I don't know, Medicine Man wasn't very good either.
I don't know. I did my impersonation of him from that a minute ago, and I thought.
So anyway, meanwhile,
no, wait. You do
some
your
frogmen invade the Shield, and Virginia Madsen is there for some reason, and blah blah blah. And while that's going on, Connor goes to the diner, and he plays a Queen song on the jukebox, because I guess in the world of Highlander 2, the soundtrack to Highlander actually exists as an album, and Connor is able to just go to the jukebox and select a song about himself. And then the mean lady from Friday the 13th Part 9 yells at him and throws
was that
shit.
her?
Yeah.
She broke his wrist until his wrist wasn't broken in the next scene?
There's actually a cut scene there.
Oh.
Yeah, I discovered that during my modicum of actual research that I did.
You did better than me.
One of the way that was intercut with the business of Katana sending the Porcupine twins to Earth, he gets his wrist injured, and then he sees himself heal. And that is how he knows that people from Zeist have come to Earth. But that is cut out from the part that we see. But yeah, there's actually a whole scene of him healing, which I guess is a thing that, you know, they've added for this too, because they didn't really like have super healing powers so much in the first movie.
No, that's actually something that made me very angry with watching this.
No, because if they had super healing powers, then Kurgan wouldn't have had to walk around with that badass like neck wound with the safety pins in it.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, they never healed fast. None of it was about a healing factor. It's just that they didn't die.
No, it was just immortality. It's
they don't be like, oh,
thing.
I had 108 bullets. I had 112. Look at me, I'm.
Okay, but I actually did. That scene was kind of fun. The scene where they go into the prison is like the only enjoyable scene in the entire movie.
It would have been enjoyable if it was actually something that was making sense.
If it wasn't in a Highlander movie and in complete contradiction to everything, it would have been enjoyable.
I mean, if they were superheroes and you could separate that from the reality of this, it's a goddamn movie, but fuck this bullshit. It cannot be accepted. I am mad about it.
So there's this is my favorite part of the movie where we are right now, because when the portal opened up in the sky, Bill, who watched the movie with me, was like, oh, science fiction's going on.
I will go right with that.
But this whole scene is also the second dumbest thing that happens in the movie, because Katana, besides having a terrible name, has the most inexplicable motivation of any movie villain I have ever seen. The only thing that he indicates that he wants to do is have Connor McLeod be dead, right? That's like his whole thing. But Connor McLeod is a frail old man, and he will die by like next week. And he sends the Porcupine twins from Zeist to go after him, even though sending more Zeistians to Earth means that Connor will become immortal again, which is the opposite of killing him.
Well, and he looked like he was surprised.
This idea is so stupid that even the Porcupine twins point out the folly of it. He's like, hey, but boss, I thought you said that Connor McLeod was mortal now, and he can never return to Zeist. And Katana's like, don't worry about it. And then he sends them there, and he becomes mortal and young and kills them. It's utterly wrong-headed. Even it is contrary to his own stated goals within the context of this terrible movie.
I am so mad at this movie that I actually did a little bit of research about the series, because I did see Highlander 3. I did watch that.
I believe that I watched that with you and Ian and Mom at a theater in Portland, because we saw it like the same day that we went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That sounds right.
We saw it at that really weird mall, like way out on 82nd. It's like half empty and has interior carpeting.
It was not a pleasant location. I'll say that.
No, but it was the only place that was playing Highlander 3.
And it had popcorn, and that was cool. I remember watching it and being really suspect. And Matt, I was a very young. I was not a teenager. I don't.
No, that was probably like 94.
Well, I mean, 94. Yeah, and that would have put me at 12.
Yeah, because
but
I was living
sure.
with Tirza. So yeah, it's got to be like 94, maybe 95.
Yeah. The critical factor for me was like, well, I mean, none of this reflected anything from Highlander 2. And that was one of the things in my very minimal looking into any of this bullshit. Highlander 3 ignored this movie that we're talking about. And this movie should be ignored.
Oh, yes. And I mean, also chronologically, Highlander 3 would take place before Highlander 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if it didn't ignore it, like, well, I mean, it did ignore it. Well, I mean,
well,
I guess if Highlander 3 took place in the year it came out, then it would be happening before the Shield was launched.
And it was wizard freaking powers, time travel.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. It's got a Van Peebles in it as some immortal wizard character.
Yeah. It was basically fucking Back to the Future taking care of the problem. But I also didn't watch that since the theater because I was still ever so mad.
Yeah, I don't really remember. I've seen it. I know I've seen it since, but I don't recall the actual story of Highlander 3.
Somebody in a cave.
I mean, why would you need to?
No,
yeah, there's definitely a cave.
Yeah.
I would. God, this movie's terrible. The big scene when the Porcupine twins show up and they have the big fight, and speaking of Back to the Future 2, hoverboard battle, because sequels have hoverboards, right? That's the lesson that we learned from Back to the Future 2. So it's kind of a fun fight ish. If it was in a different movie for different reasons, it would be sort of fun. There's a couple of enjoyable images and action bits, and the big I like the big kiss kiss boom tank where the tanker truck gets detrucked and the big tank is just sliding down the road with a huge kissy lips on the front of it, and then it explodes. That was cute. It's very music video. This whole thing, like every bit of this, like each section kind of felt like music video kind of construction. But it doesn't add up to anything. And
None
then
of it
Virginia
went
Madsen is
anywhere.
watching him from a dumpster. Yeah, it's all yeah, gliders and hoverboards trying to make up for a lack of a story, and it doesn't really work. Some good like a couple of nice beheadings, like the clotheslining, and you know, the guy gets clotheslined and smashes into the junction box or whatever. That was fun.
No. I mean, look at it. He lifted it up, it hit him about in the eyes, and it ripped his neck off.
Well,
that one. No.
Zeistians have particularly fragile necks. They just tear away at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, and the eyes.
That's really the only way that
throat.
you can tell a Zeistian from an Earthling in their physiology. It's their breakaway necks.
I'd buy that.
They're like those
for
lizards.
$1.
I'd buy that for $1.
It's like those lizards with their tails that come off.
That's the thing.
I have to sort of preface the next one because one of the things that that is added in these awful Zeistian flashbacks while we are enjoying our bowls of delicious orange quickening is that Sean Connery tells Connor,
but we are joined in a way that can never be broken, not even by death. When you need me, you'll only have to call my name. I'll always find you.
So to, much like the voiceover flashback reminding him to remember that he's from another galaxy, this is some of the clumsiest fucking storytelling that I have ever seen. So apparently sometime in the past, the magical quickening joined them together. So now when he is in the throes of his porcupine quickening orgasm, and he calls out Ramirez, and there's a bolt of light or something that I guess represents Sean Connery's soul that shoots up into the air and then ricochets off the fucking shield so that it can land in the wrong spot, and we have Sean Connery suddenly appearing, fully formed, wearing his outfit from the first movie, on a stage somewhere where someone else is performing a scene from Hamlet.
Interruption.
In the first of a series of terrible comic relief.
We needed to fill up the room. If we did not have that, and we did not have what was going to come of that, we would not have broke that 72-minute mark that is necessary for a theatrical release for a film. If we
that's nonsense, because they put like 30 minutes back in for the Renegade edition.
Well, I don't know that, but if they hadn't done what they did for that bullshit, they wouldn't have hit the 72-minute mark. And this was barely 1 hour and 28 minutes.
Yeah, I gotta say, there are still other choices they could have made.
We are sitting at the less than 1 minute mark. We're gonna get disconnected.
Oh my god, everybody hang the fuck on, because this is about to get real.
It will. And we'll be back. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I gotta pee.
Gonna take a Highlander poo.
Oh, nice.
All right, welcome back to Zeists Beach, baby.
Oh man, we need to have not only a name for it, but a catch that goes. Zeists Beach.
I mean, that's all we saw of Zeist anyway.
Yeah, it's a. Oh shit! No, there's actually more to it. Zeists Beach, and they've got huge statues that are taking a shit. Did you see that? There were like at least 3 of them that were
I did not notice.
They're taking
But why
a
would they
shit.
say that there can be only one if they're all taken in number 2?
Maybe that's why they were banishing them, because they saw that.
Do you think that that's what the entire rivalry was about?
I think that it was about absolutely no comprehension of anything that anybody was writing, and I'm so disappointed in it.
Maybe the conflict on Zeist was the same conflict that they were having between the piranha women and the barracuda women in the movie Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death. It was about one faction that believed men should be killed and eaten with guacamole dip,
and
another faction that believed that men should be killed and eaten with clam dip.
And I think it should be clam dip, but I'm accidentally a vegetarian right now, and
I'm not really a big clam dip fan. I'm
Matt,
a little sketchy on a lot of seafood.
Matt, some clam dips are really good. I've got a really good clam dip recipe.
I know they can be, but I'm like, if I'm going to eat a clam dip, I want to understand its provenance first. You know, I'm not gonna like eat a tub of Dean's brand clam dip from the dairy case.
Yeah, no. I am suspect of anybody else's processing it. It's a thing. It's a thing.
No, I'm not opposed to clam dip across the board. But I lived in Chicago for a long time, and I have a great deal of skepticism about any seafood if I am not located near the ocean.
Some of the best sushi that I've ever had was in frickin' Las Vegas.
That's still closer to the ocean than I was.
Yep, you're right. I won't argue that point.
Vegas is also like, you know, they like to waste money, like doing things like getting seafood to you fast.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was great, but at the same time, it's like
I remember my first year in Chicago. Our Aunt Margaret and Uncle Bill came through town, and they took me to dinner at some fancy fucking hotel restaurant. And I had a salmon steak, and it was utterly flavorless. It was like it's that weird sensation when you can smell something, but it's not really there. It's like it smelled like salmon. There was like molecules of salmon hitting my palate, but there was no salmon flavor to the fish. And that was the beginning of my journey to not eating any seafood for a really long time.
You know, I miss eating animals, and I do periodically. Actually, I regularly make jokes about it being Emily's fault, coupled with Ian and with Haley, and the 3 of them, the trifecta, have forced me to not eat meat now.
I didn't realize that Haley was in on it.
Oh, absolutely. Because, you know, Emily went vegetarian, so I was largely cooking no meat at the house unless there was like extra people coming over for a barbecue, which in COVID times obviously is not a thing. So it was rare that I had reason to grill any meats. And then Ian went into the hospital, and Ian going into the hospital required that I did not have to cook anything because I'm stuck at the house now. I don't have anywhere to go because he had a positive COVID test, which was in fact a non-positive. It was a false positive rather. And regardless of that, I still had to stay at the house for another week, waiting until I could pass my PCR test before I could go back to work. And then after that had happened, then and of course, this is not going to show up because we're not going to actually explain probably why Ian is not in the podcast, but then Ian was not there. And then I had to go to Haley's house to pick up a letter to go in with Ian's box. And then when I was getting ready to go back to work, then again, we're already 2.5 weeks into my ability to not fucking work. Haley had fucking COVID. And so Emily and I had gone to pick up the letter. And then the next day she's like, here's a picture of my positive COVID test. I'm like, I think I only worked 5 days in the month of July. And after that, I tried eating meat a couple of times when people would present it, but I get sick now. And it's not because I get sick because I have a moral thing about it. It makes me, unfortunately, have the flu in a bad way. And that being said, I know at any moment I could make a choice to continue to eat meat. And if I did it like 3 times in a row, I'd probably get my bowels over it, but I'm not gonna fucking bother because it's not fucking worth it right now. If Emily's going to be a vegetarian, I'm gonna not bother with it. Which is a much better story than this fucking movie.
Most things are. Sean Connery shows up and he is basically unnecessary, which makes sense, especially since he was beheaded in the first movie, and there's no reason for him to be participating in this. I know that was sort of a requirement that the people financing the movie, like Sean Connery was sort of part of the deal, like they wanted him in the movie.
Christopher Lambert,
and I don't know if
it.
Well, and that's fine. I'm wondering if the sort of mandate, what if maybe they were super lazy about the storytelling out of protest, except that everything else about the storytelling is also terrible, so it seems unlikely that one bit is explained by protest. But yeah, they stuck him in the worst possible way because I guess he had to be there, and then he's not necessary to the story at all. The first many scenes he appears in, he's not connected to the plot, and he's just in a series of comic relief bits, which are not very good. I mean, they're not terrible, but they don't really belong in this movie.
No, the montage of him getting his suit was absolutely unnecessary. And then when they put him on a plane, and he's like, flight? He's supposed to be a fucking alien from outer space who knows what flight is.
Yeah, it's like this movie can't decide whether it believes its own new fake backstory, because all of the scenes that he's in on his own are played as though he is a normal person from here who died several hundred years ago and is unfamiliar with the modern world, which is what he would be according to his character in the first movie.
Unless he was not the wizard who stops a fan. Oh, a fan.
Yeah, we'll get to that. The other thing that's happening right now is we're putting a bunch of pieces of the story in motion. We set Sean Connery off on his own little thing. Connor goes and visits his old friend at the Shield Corporation, which is where we get like the only sort of piece of sci-fi story information that really matters. Is the Shield is creating the dystopia. The corporation is profiting because they control the Shield, but above the Shield, the radiation level is normal now, so it's completely unnecessary. This is like really bog standard old sci-fi plot, which is fine. Like you can use that story and make it good, but it's not a Highlander movie. It has nothing to do with our mythology. And we meet our bad guy, Dr. Cox from Scrubs. And
that was.
and he's all, yeah, yeah.
I haven't watched that show.
It's funny. I mean, it's fine, whatever. He's good on. I like him on that show. He's a very enjoyable actor, and he's, like most people, wasted in this movie. This is also where Katana comes to Earth now. We have a little cutaway scene to Zeist. Katana sort of all by himself. He seems to be, I guess, like, we don't see him watching a screen or whatever, but he seems to be just like monitoring the action. We don't really like we're not given a mechanism for that. We're not like, maybe he's got like one, like a Wicked Witch of the West, like big crystal ball, and he's like sort of putting his hands over it and going, yeah.
There's a lot of this movie that doesn't exist in reality.
No, he actually says, you know, if you want something right, you got to do it yourself. Like, he's not talking to anybody. He's there on his own, as far as we can see, and he just says,
Matt,
you want something right, you got to do it yourself. And then I guess that's
Michael
when he comes
Ironside.
to Earth. So you're saying that he's talking to Mark Singer from V?
I don't know what that is, but probably more intelligent than the rest of this movie. Yes.
It's all terrible. This is, I kind of love this next bit because it's so, like, it's so painful. Michael Ironside, God love him. Like, he's a perfectly capable actor. This movie gives him fucking nothing to work with. So he comes to Earth now. I guess they fall out of the sky because he just like smashes into a
through the
subway
ground
car.
into a subway.
Yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. But what I love is, like I mentioned, I talked before about how he has no obvious motivation. Like, all he's talking about is wanting to stop Connor or whatever. His motivation is so inexplicable that the movie at this point needs to establish him as a villain, but doesn't come up with anything. So they just have a series of Michael Ironside being an asshole to people for no reason. Like, he smashes into the subway car and he starts marching through it, just like being a dick, like hitting people sometimes, pushing him out of the way. He makes his way to the front and he starts driving the subway really fast.
No.
Like,
He
that's
doesn't just start driving. He doesn't just start driving the subway, Matt. He falls through the ground into a subway train and he knows how to drive it.
Well, yeah, because he's an alien. He operates technology all the time. Plus, he's been watching all of the events on Earth with his Wicked Witch of the West crystal ball.
But he knows that you just wind a thing and suddenly it makes a subway train goes 400 miles an hour.
Like, I had a bit of a question about why the subway is built with the capability of driving 500 miles an hour.
Well, and it can't get off the track. Somehow it stays on.
That's what I mean. It seems like maybe a bit of an oversight on the safety side of things. I can't think of a good reason why you would need the subway to go 500 miles an hour. Nice. Okay. Also, I had a bit of a question here. Okay, the Zeistians that we've met in the past were immortal because there were multiple people from Zeist on Earth, right? This is what they're telling us now.
No.
And that was 500 years ago that they were exiled here. Yes? According to this movie.
Fuck this movie.
Okay, we need to talk about this movie because that's what we're here for. Am I correct in thinking that this movie is telling us that they were exiled here 500 years ago, and the reason they were immortal is because they were all here together, and then they stopped being immortal once there's only one left? That's what I'm getting.
Have
that
I
this
told
movie
you
told
about
me
Highlander?
Because okay, I'm leading to something.
I've got this book here. Have I told you about Highlander?
Do you think I'm going to let you into my home to preach to me about Highlander?
I don't need to preach to you about it. I'm asking you a question. Have I told you about Highlander?
I already know about Highlander.
Well, fuck.
I know all
right.
there is to know.
Continue with your bullshit.
Because my question is this: why does Michael Ironside look the same as he did 500 years ago?
Our listeners won't know what I'm doing.
Has it been 500 years for Michael Ironside? Is there like a time bubble? The fuck is happening?
None of this is
really
good.
Old? Shouldn't he be really old?
They should all be dead.
If Earthlings
this
go to
movie
Zeists,
sucks. It sucks.
Do
so
we become
bad.
immortal? Okay, but how much did you love the safety video on the plane?
Just get to your final fucking questions already.
But
I don't want any
much
more
movie.
There's no more movie.
But what about the part where they have to break into the prison and get shot up a bunch of times?
Oh, the part where they suddenly actually not become immortal, but just like invincible?
They're like vampires.
No, not even. They're just like lame Wolverine.
Also, why was Virginia Madsen not riddled with bullets in the trunk of that car? Because it wasn't like a bulletproof car.
I was really upset about that part. She should have been really dead. A lot. Really, really dead.
Yeah, okay. Well, just rushing through the plot a bit here, plot such as it is, since we've established that the radiation level above the shield is normal now, what we need to do to finish telling our science fiction story is free the world by destroying the shield, right? And that's what we do. It's like the end of Total Recall. It's we make the atmosphere and everybody's going to be okay now. That's what we're aiming for. And then Michael Ironside shows up to chase Connor, I guess.
And they don't
beat up
fucking
Dr.
know how to
Cox's
sword
flunky.
fight.
He did not at all. And I was really curious why Michael Ironside in his trail of civic jerkfulness of beating up public servants and cab drivers and whatnot makes his way to the Shield Corporation. Number one, why does he care about the Shield? Does he care about why is he goes to the Shield Corporation? You think maybe like he's got something to do with this or has a horse in this race somehow. He goes in there, he fucks up Dr. Cox, he beats up his flunky who shoots him, he grabs him by the face and like tears his jaw, kind of like King Kong and a Tyrannosaurus. And then
But they didn't even show the end of it.
No, but Dr. Cox is the first person who asks a sensible question in this movie, which is, what do you want? But his answer is the Highlander. That he just wants McLeod. Why didn't he go to McLeod's house?
Well, why do they call him
He's
the
not a
Highlander?
recluse. If he wants to, like, he obviously can see shit that was going on Earth from his crystal ball on Zeist. Why doesn't he go to Highlander's house instead of the Shield Corporation?
But Matt, he's not even a Highlander anymore.
Apparently he is still. Do they have Highlands? Do they have Highlands on Zeist?
Does Zeist have anybody other than giant statues that the poop in the
Maybe
desert?
he meant that he wanted an SUV.
Huh. I hadn't considered that. That
Also, I think it
actually,
was
that might be the most intelligent thought regarding this movie.
I mean, he had issues with the subway. He clearly didn't like taking a cab. Maybe he just wanted a Highlander to drive to Connor's house.
That might have got it over in a nicer way that didn't necessarily have to end with a beheading. They could have had coffee. They both knew that they weren't going back to Zeist at that. I'm gonna actually lean to that might be the best concept here that might keep the plot going.
Is there a good sequel that they could have made, not utilizing the parts of this movie, but like, I mean, granting, first of all, that Highlander is a complete film. It is over at the end. There's no window open for a sequel. It's done. Is there a way to make a sequel to Highlander that is even theoretically satisfying?
So, Highlander 3, and don't
Is that your
pretend
answer?
don't pretend for a second that I'm saying that is a good movie. I also watched that only one time in the theater, and it disregarded everything about this fucking garbage film that we're talking about right now. I don't know if that's any better, but it made me less mad. That's all I got.
Well, it's definitely not good.
Well,
it's not a good movie at all.
Matt, you were older than
theoretically
me and
better
there
than this one.
on the scene. You've probably seen it more than I have.
I mean, I have seen it more, but I don't like it. It is so meaningless that it doesn't take up any space in my brain. Like Highlander 2 lives rent free in my brain because it made me so furious, and over the years has become like, I don't know if I don't know if other people like hate watch things. Like there are certain things that I will watch just because they're terrible, and not like in an enjoyable, ironic way, but like they make me really mad. And Highlander 2 is that movie for me. And it's like, I'll hate watch it just because like it gives me a charge. Like, it's like, fuck this thing. Like, it's like it's like doom scrolling for some people, I think. You know, it's just like there are certain things that you enjoy not enjoying. And Highlander 2 is like, it is so like fucking aggressively terrible that it fascinates me. And it's not like I don't even appreciate it really, but I appreciate like how every single choice that it makes is like almost the worst thing that it could do. And it's like it becomes like mesmerizing. It's just so fucking bad.
This is honestly kind of I feel this way about this movie as I do about Titanic.
I've never seen Titanic.
Oh.
And I won't, even for this podcast.
No, you will. You will.
I'll do Braveheart.
We have found the one that we have to make you watch now.
Yeah, I get. You know what? Like, I might even prefer to watch A Night at the Roxbury.
Matt, do you know how much I hate Titanic?
I will watch the French and Saunders parody of Titanic anytime.
Did I tell you about my experiences with the movie Titanic?
I feel like there was some story, but should we save it for if we do Titanic?
Oh no. We can use this for the intro to it. Titanic is terrible.
I mean, we still got a lot of this movie to talk about.
Oh, we do. But if you haven't seen Titanic, Matt, You're gonna have to.
I mean, I know what happens.
It's terrible. Anyway, let's finish this.
I mean,
film.
I know it's terrible.
Oh, well, you don't know.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the part where fucking Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert meet each other.
Oh, we don't need to.
I mean, they do eventually. They meet each other. It's the prison bit is fucking so ridiculous because, okay, like I mentioned that I enjoy them getting into the prison. His friend Alan gets sent to prison by Dr. Cox for reasons that don't really make sense. But Connor wants to bust him out. So they absurdly break into the prison by just driving through the front door in a car and getting shot the fuck up by all the guards. And who, of course, think they're dead, and they get taken to the morgue in the prison where they turn out to be fine. And so is Virginia Madsen, who rode in the trunk and was inexplicably not hurt at all. And then they mount their prison rescue after the infirmary guy like really comically faints, like like a fucking cartoon lady. And then they go find his friend who dies like 3 seconds after they find him. Like this entire little side quest comes to absolutely nothing. And like you have to assume that like there's something cut out here because yeah, it's a whole big rescue operation, and they meet him and he dies. And then all of a sudden like the climax fight is happening. Which they said in that this is actually one of the things that it was like a side effect of the insurance edit, which is like there's a bunch of connective tissue that is cut out here. Because I remember like one of the notes I took was, oh, they're fighting on top of the prison or the corporation. I don't care. That was my note. And then I watched this little behind the scenes thing, which explained that there was in fact like a whole chasing scene change thing here that happened that got cut out. So there's like two fights just kind of smashed together, and we're pretending that they're just one, even though there's like an actual costume change.
Bunch of bullshit.
Which is great. It's really good.
It's great bullshit, huh?
It's so fucking annoying. And yeah, so they're fighting on top of, I think it's supposed to be the company, the Shield Corporation at this point. You'd think that there's like the big beam on top that's like making the shield, or it's like this central control unit from Tron that they're fighting in front of. But you'd think that like you just need to turn it off, but apparently the best way to destroy the shield is just to throw an alien into the beam. Because Connor, like, there can be only one Michael Ironside, and then like just steps into the beam and like that just like blows out the equipment, or it's like, is there not an off switch?
Well, not only that, but it's going to interrupt the whole thing. The satellite was all right. Here's my problem. Connor steps into
the
it.
Only one. The only problem you have with this movie is as follows.
No. I will not allow that. So he steps into the beam. The beam interrupts the ability for the shield around the space or around the planet, right? Now, that shoots right up into the space station that is not just a satellite floating around. It is a populated space station. It's a populated space station with windows into everybody's homes and happy little places to be. Blows the fuck out of them.
They're probably jerks.
Hopefully. They're all dead now. And it's like, hey, look, I'm Christopher Lambert. I'm a French Scotsman.
Yeah, but they're they're Shield Corporation employees, right? So they're probably all just a bunch of Dr. Coxes.
Yeah, probably.
Their kids
So-
are shitty too. It's fine.
The worst
totally
part
fine.
about it is me thinking about it. I
Do
don't
you
need
think
to
I was
care.
wondering this too? Because I tried at the beginning to imagine that this was not a Highlander movie. This is just a science fiction movie, and I'm gonna like try, at a certain point that becomes
This is a
impossible. But I'm
Highlander
wondering,
movie?
is there someone like there's got to be someone somewhere who just loves this movie, right? Like someone, and like, what is that person like? Like,
No.
like what do they love about it?
No.
Like, where do they connect with this movie? Like,
all right.
that
Matt,
glider battle was fucking epic, man.
This is if this ever goes out into the ether, this is lost tapes land. No, there is not anybody who loves this. No, there is not anybody who cares about that. And if they do, I'm going to put it out here right now, unapologetically. They are wrong.
Well, I mean, I agree that they are absolutely wrong. I would just be fascinated to try to hear what their perspective is, because I can't put myself in the headspace of appreciating Highlander 2 as anything besides like a really aggressive failure
Mistake.
of a sequel. Like I feel like on some level, I feel like it just hates the fans of Highlander. Like it's
Yes.
really mad at them.
Terminator 2 was the greatest sequel ever made. And fucking Highlander 2 isn't even a sequel. It's even worse than all right, so Troll 2 isn't a sequel to Troll,
Well,
and it's
no,
not
it's
even
not. No.
it's not even
Like
approachable.
I definitely would
attached to
not
it.
count
It's
a sequel
about
that isn't
goblins.
really. Yeah, I mean, this was conceived by the original creator as
And-
a sequel,
And it had
this
the
is what we
people,
got.
and it was attached to it. It was far. It's the
It
most
is
offensive
astonishing.
conception of a sequel, and it's not a
And
sequel.
that's why I will say my answer to my usual question of why is this the most important movie ever made is because Highlander 2, I don't think, has ever been topped as the most like head scratching, what the fuck sequel to a movie like that was in an intentional sequel. And there are multiple versions of this movie, and each of them I think is equally far off the mark.
It is
And
the
I
greatest
don't think-
failure.
It is. I don't think that anyone has ever done a better, worse job than Highlander 2.
I would give you Knuckles if I could over the space and time.
And okay, how about why is this movie not as good as RoboCop? I feel like this is the time that question is easiest to answer because it is worse than all movies.
I don't even have to answer because you did it.
It's. I mean,
And
I
I'm
normally
not
ask that question.
mad. I'm just proud.
So proud of you, baby.
Exactly.
I mean, normally it's a very tongue-in-cheek question, but no, this movie, it in all ways is not as good as
beautiful
RoboCop.
in the bad ways.
And so I'm going to ask my third question again since we got a minute. If you could replace any character in Highlander 2 with Carol Burnett, who would it be and why?
What is Carol Burnett?
You don't know who Carol Burnett is?
Matt, I don't.
The most accessible answer is she is the actress who played Miss Hannigan in the musical movie Annie, which I know you saw as a kid.
God, it would be really cool for her to be Connor, but quite frankly, it would be even better if Sean Connery did not have to be in this movie. I
That
want
is
her to
true,
be
and
Sean Connery.
I don't think there's a better answer than that. She's a great physical comedian, and I think she would bring something much more interesting to that role.
Well, and quite frankly, she's a beautiful actress. I really honestly didn't know who you're talking about. But yeah, she would make a much better Ramirez.
That would be really. I mean, she would. I'm trying to. There are some scenes of Katana that I think she would probably find some lovely moments in as well.
Yeah, but
I
I
feel
don't
like
want her to go that dark.
no, and she shouldn't. That's not really in her wheelhouse. I mean, she does drama as well, but mostly she's a pretty. I mean, her original the showcase was the Carol Burnett show, which was like a variety like sketch comedy series with like her, Vicki Lawrence, Lyle Wagner, and Tim Conway, and Harvey Korman, and she's very physical and loud, and I think she would do a great job in the Sean Connery role.
I think so as well. I know that I've seen some of this stuff. I just and I know her name. I just don't have it attached to the reality.
There are other. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I mean, I don't want to turn this into like a Carol Burnett review, but she like the Carol Burnett show. If you can find it, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. There are at least it was a big variety, like an hour long format, but it was condensed down into these like 30-minute episodes for syndication that get aired periodically. They used to do reruns of those all the time when I was a kid, and if you can find those, there's some really funny shit in there. Like she's a really terrific actress, and it looks like it is the most fun set to work on. She also does a really great Tarzan yell.
Really?
Yeah, she's kind of famous for it, actually.
Huh. That's fun. Now, I know her, and initially it was entirely about Annie, and I was like, and she scared me.
She's so good in Annie. She's so good.
She is, and so is Tim Curry. But I mean,
I love them together.
Everything.
We're about to cut out, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Well, I guess we're gonna.
All right. Well, it's been great talking about this terrible movie. And I love you, Ted.
I love you too, Matt.
It sounds like magic.
Oh, it is. Kind of.
Depot Devoid is hosted by Matt Fagan and Ted Fagan. Depot Devoid is not hosted by Ian Fagan because he died and we miss him. Reach us at depotdevoidpodcast@gmail.com.